Hello and welcome. We've come to our final writer, Geoffrey Chaucer. So, Chaucer is considered by many to be one of the finest. In fact, second to Shakespeare, he's often considered to be the finest writer in the English language. And he was writing from the end of the 14th century, so his life spanned 1340 to 1400, more or less. And we are reading selections from the Canterbury Tales, and the Canterbury Tales are by far the most famous work the most famous works. They're a whole bunch of short stories, but collectively they are known as the Canterbury Tales, the most famous work of Chaucer. So, what exactly were the Canterbury Tales? So, this is a little bit of background. Around the time that Chaucer is writing, there was a tradition where people would leave from London and go on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, to the Cathedral of Canterbury, and this was the center of the English church. And they would go there and they would make this journey and they would pray for whatever they were hoping for in their life, and they would return. So this was a very important thing for the Christians of England to do in that day. And England was a Christian country. Pretty much everyone was a Christian, and anyone who could do it would try to do it. So before they would leave, they would go and spend a night in this particular tavern, which was right in London, which is right next to a bridge that would lead out of London towards the road that would take them to Canterbury. So in this Canterbury Tales, which is set in this tavern, they are all there, these pilgrims, and they're getting ready for this pilgrimage, which will begin. And what happens then is the tavern keeper says to them, well, you know what, now that we're all here, why don't we have a competition where we tell stories, and whoever tells the best story can win a free meal on me. All right, so that's the frame for how this story takes place. So what you're going to read is you're going to read the general prologue, which is where you find out what I just told you about the tavern keeper, where it introduces all the various people who are there, the various pilgrims. You're going to read that. Then you're going to read the Wife of Bath's prologue and tale, and you're going to read the Pardoner's prologue and tale. So that's the whole selection of everything from Chaucer that's in this book. So the Wife of Bath's prologue and tale, you need to definitely read the prologue and the tale because they kind of relate to one another. So the Wife of Bath, as you'll learn, is a woman who's had many different husbands, and she tells some tales which would have been salacious and outrageous for the day, and it's kind of funny, but there's also an element of tragedy that underlies a lot of what she's talking about. She's commenting on the gender and sexual politics of the day, and even for contemporary readers, some of it seems a little surprising. And for readers of this time, it would definitely have been, she would have been considered an outlier, a sort of rebel in society, but a very interesting character to read about. And then there's the Pardoner, and you're going to read the Pardoner's prologue and tale. And the Pardoner is, as you will learn, a kind of con man. So what these people did at this time, it was common for pardoners to sell relics, and so they would sell these kind of strange bones or pieces of hair or a piece of clothing, and they would claim that these had belonged to a saint, someone who was very holy. And there was even a market for people who would sell pieces of the cross, or sometimes people would try and sell nails that they said came from the crucifixion. And this was a thriving market, and whoever could tell the best story about the item would maybe be able to convince people to buy it, and they believed that they had a kind of mystical or magical power. So you'll read the Pardoner's tale, and it's a story about deceit and trickery and what happens to people who get involved in deceit and trickery. And it's kind of funny, and it's also dark and tragic, but humorous at the same time. So read all of that, read the introduction, read the prologue, read the prologues to each of the tales and the tales, and then comment on it as well, talk about the characters, talk about the way that the prologue informs how you read the tale itself. You can talk about some of the ideas that these characters put forward and how particularly they seem to be contradicting their own ideas through the way in which they live, and how does this confuse or complicate the way in which we read it. Are we meant to be reading these as simple morality tales in which we're being told how to live life, or is Chaucer giving us a morality tale but at the same time undercutting it with showing how the complexities of human life don't always fit neatly into these morality tales? So those are just some thoughts, but you read these stories. They're the last ones we're going to read, so have fun with them. Bring some cool ideas. I look forward to reading your posts, and thank you for taking the course. I hope you've enjoyed it.